Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. And I still have to figure out why the game is not being uh, broadcasted by OBS. At least the starting sequence. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. Anyway, thank you for joining me. AJ, are you with me? I have not seen you today in the chat. Or is my chat now working? Ah, great that you're here. Thank you for moderating this stream again. Today we have another look at US American signaling, which is especially nice since I found out that signaling in the United States is spelled with one L in front of the ing, and UK signaling is spelled with one L more. I did not know that before, but now I know why it is sometimes spelled like this and sometimes the other way. Since we are in the United States, it is signaling with one L that we look into. On a DLC, that was one of the last DLCs that was published for Train Sim World 2. Before the transition to Train Sim World 3, it is the Harlem Line. And on the Harlem Line we have those silver trains that we know already from the Long Island Railroad DLC that, well, still has some problems with its signaling, I think, and it is much better here on the Harlem Line. It is a different signaling system though, so don't get confused. Both happens in and around New York, but it's two different railroads, two different signaling systems, and we will have a look into it later as how it works. What I wanted to run today, maybe I will make two streams about the Harlem Line, one about the signaling, one about more focused on the safety systems on those trains. We take a service that starts here, train 366 North White Plains to Grand Central Terminal, so into New York, not out of New York, and I think we go to November, start with light clouds maybe, and it is a service that is a local train, so we have to stop a lot at stations. Not just run the line from top to bottom, but stop a lot at stations. What do you think about this picture here, AJ? It's one of the loading screen pictures that is original, I think, at least. So, we are in our train, we are running. It makes me cry voice, yes. Maybe we are getting ice cream. I think, now I can see the chat completely, that was a bit cut off before. We have the M3A train, there are two trains, the M3 and the M7A, both times. The M3 is a train from the 80s, so it's definitely the older trains. It's a Budd train. That means that it was manufactured by the manufacturer Budd in the 80s. The A indicates that it is a train that was built for the MTA Metro-North Railroad that runs the Harlem Line, not the Long Island Railroad. On the Long Island Railroad we have the M3 and the M7 trains both, but without the A. And this is how it is in real life, as far as you can read it up in the internet. So, this is our cab. Actually, we are wedged into a very small compartment here. If you want to look around, this is all passenger stuff, and we are crammed here into one corner of the train and have to drive from here. The setup is quite easy. All our switches that we need to turn on for the security systems are behind the driver's seat. Alerter, deadman's pedal, but what is actually dysfunctional in this DLC. ATC and ACSES, which are both very functional. You turn it on, then you have here your master key. You put it into in. Make sure that you really push it to the extreme, otherwise your reverser that needs to be set in forward here directly will not move. Never forget that you have to pump up your brakes first. The indicator is at 0 here, so we have to put the brake controller, the master controller, to max brake and then push the charge brakes buttons, and you can see on the manometer for the brakes that we are pumping them, and this puts us in a position where we can actually use them. Dim headlights. I turn off the lights inside the cab so I can better see what is happening outside. We are not starting at a station here, but in the yard of North White Plains, and we have to make our way to the station first. Already in forward, light is on, brakes are charged. The marker lights on the M3 are actually turned off here. On the back end they are turned on. So all we need to do is to release the brakes, honk our horn, and get started. This controller here is the most important thing. It tells you about the in-cab signals that we are getting and about the track speed here. If you got the dashes for the track speed, then you are in a territory that is not regulated by ACSES, and then you are always confined to a maximum speed of 10. So we can't go faster than 10. Those signals that you see here, the flashing green, is the most common signal that we are encountering as long as we can proceed actually, and the opposite to that thank you for the hint for me that the cursor is actually big and wide. If I move it in front of things that are lit up, maybe then you can see the cursor better. But I will try my very best and zoom in to what we are explaining here, the 10. Now we have a track speed of 10 that is enforced by ACSES. I think on a second stream we will look at ACSES and ATC a bit more in particular. So far all that we need to know is that ATC is controlling compliance with the cab signals and ACSES is controlling the compliance with the track speed, the civil speed. We talked about this a bit more in the NORAC stream and the Boston Sprinter stream. But we will talk about this more, I think, in a second Harlem stream. Today I want to focus on the signaling here, and you already see with all those indicators in your train, it is a system that relies heavily on in-cab signaling. We don't see a lot of different aspects on the trackside signals, but we get our signals here on the ADU, the aspect display unit, and this is what we have to follow. This system makes it possible to run a lot of trains on the tracks. It has a permissive block system. That means there can be more than one train in one block, and to enforce that and make sure that there are no incidents, you need the cab signaling system. So this is our first stop, North White Plains. Let's see if we get some passengers in our train. Yes, not so super many people that want to travel to New York at this time of day, but at least a couple. You can see on this train again the lights above the doors. They are red if the doors are open, and they go dark as soon as the doors are closed, and then you know that you can start. The lights for the brakes here, I don't know if I turned them off somehow or if they are just dysfunctional. As far as I know, trains honk before they go to the platform, and they honk when they start at the platforms. So I will just try doing that. You can see now that we have not only a track speed of 30, but also a cab signal medium speed. Medium speed is 30, just like in the NORAD territory. Is it okay so, AJ, if I zoom in and show this like that? Maybe you can see the cursor then. Is the weird rail a third rail? Yes, that weird rail is a third rail. Those trains are third rail DC trains. I think a voltage of 750 volts. Now you saw that the allowed track speed went to 50, but I still cannot go on because the end of the train has to be properly across the speed changing point, what just happened now, so that I can pump up speed a bit. We have 4 notches for accelerating the train, just like in on the Electrostars in the UK. I don't know if and how I can change this with the cursor, because the cursor setting for me is a big white cursor and it translates to a black cursor on the OBS. We're closing in for the next stop, White Plains. I know that we have to slow down to 35 miles before we get there. You will see it on the ACSES indicator very soon, like now. Those trains that run here are really long for commuter trains. If you compare it with the Electrostars in Great Britain or the trains in Germany. And if there is no snow on the tracks, then it is actually not a big problem. But as soon as the conditions get snowy, then it is really hard to break those trains and stop them. Just have a look on them. They are... Which one is ours? This one is ours. They are really long. And this is even a quite short train. There are trains with 12 cars. I think we are at 10. Yeah, we are at 10. Actually more trains coupled together. They could run in pairs of 2 if need be. But can be coupled up to 12 cars they have in this game here at least. How much do we weigh? We have 596 tons. But it's nice that you ask. It's actually an interesting fact that I do not know whether the game takes into account the weight of the people that are on the train or that might be on the train. I don't think that the weight actually changes if you get more people boarding the train or disembarking. So I think they just ignore that. Now we are in a part of the track where we go 35. In-cab signaling tells us normal speed, so we can go to the 35 track speed. Next stop will be in Hartsdale. There will be a short part of the track where we can actually go a bit faster than the 35 before we get to Hartsdale. Here again, we switch to 65 here, but still have to wait until the train is beyond the speed changing point completely. You can see that we are going here across this junction. This is why there is the speed changing point, and now the train is across it and we can accelerate. In my opinion, you actually have to try to figure out a bit how to brake this train properly. The M7 is much easier to brake in my opinion. And what I also do not know is why on American DLCs Train Sim World 3 is measuring everything in feet, while on the British it would measure it in yard. Maybe it is just to keep your brain busy. So feet are divided by 3 to get the yards, right? So 3,000 feet is like 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken. This is Hartsdale. Oh, we can see the first snowflakes. That will be a fun run then. In the snow. The timetable in general is not so super strict, so you should be, but again you can see how the train tends to push, to slide on. And you asked me about, can a train slide on icy rails, and it can. Those trains here tend to slide a lot actually, if you brake too hard. What I wanted to point out in Hartsdale here is those figures, those sculptures between the tracks. I just realized that they are there yesterday when I was preparing the stream. They look quite spooky in my opinion, don't you think so? They are workers and commuters in those silhouetted sculptures put between the tracks. I think by a guy called Nussbaum, Tom Nussbaum. You can find it on the MTA website. A short article about those sculptures. But I find it great that they implemented this here. They are creepy as heck, right? Especially at night. So, another impression how long this train is. And it's already quite dark. I think at Scarsdale we take a little break and go into that presentation that I prepared. Around the corner there will be a little bridge, and we will have to slow down to 60. Here you can actually see a speed reduction announcement sign. If you happen to see it, flew by quite fast. Here's the definite one, beep, and the ACSES tells us. And I forgot to brake because I was so mesmerized. So I hope we will make it until the station without the train starting to slide. So 60-65% brake power is usually okay. If you apply more, then your train tends to slide. Let's open the window to have a bit more. Yeah, actually no sweat at all. Maybe not the softest stop for the passengers. Later on maybe I will try to overdo it with the brakes, and maybe you can see or hear how the train starts to slide, especially when he tries to come to a complete stop and you apply too much brake force. Then you can hear how that braking noise, those screeching, stops, and then you know, oh no, the train is just floating on the ice. It's just sliding across the tracks. There's no braking anymore. So at this point I wanted to cut in my little presentation that I prepared. Can you see it? I hope you can. Yes. And before we look at the signaling system as such, I wanted to have a short recap about the US signaling regulatory framework. That means where are all those rules situated in the hierarchy of regulation. And we have seen that in the Cajon Pass stream that all signal regulations in the United States have the source in the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subtitle B, Chapter 2, and then Section 336.32, Aspects and Indications for Signals. And there is stated that all aspects of signals shall be shown by the position of semaphore blades, color of lights, position of lights, flashing of lights, or any combination thereof. And that the aspect of cap signals shall be shown by lights or by illuminated letters or numbers. And we have a train here where we have the cap signals as illuminated letters, not numbers like on the F40 and the Boston stream, but I butchered that number, I'm sorry, but you can read which number it was. It's 236.23. That is the correct spot. Yeah, but here we have the cap signals with illuminated letters, not numbers. Each aspect displayed by a signal shall be identified by a name and shall indicate action, that is where those trinity of American signaling comes from. Name, aspect, indication. Never mix it around. Aspect is, for example, green over red or yellow over lunar, white or whatever, and the name is proceed or stop or limited approach, and what they indicate tells you what you have to do. For example, stop, or you can go on with line speed, or you have to slow down to limited speed or whatever. And then the fundamental indication of signal aspect shall conform with the following, that is that red light should mean stop. A yellow light or a lunar light or anything in the mix, yellow and lunar, should mean that you have to slow down, that the speed is restricted and a stop may be required, or any combination thereof. And the green one means you can go on, that you can proceed at authorized speed. This is the basic signaling system that is already in federal regulations. And so railroad carriers cannot just invent a signaling system where blue means stop and pink means go, or anything the other way around. Green means stop and red means go. No, red has to be stop and green has to be go, and the yellow and the white are for indications that caution you to go slower and prepare for a stop. And the absence of a light, the black one, should be a red. Okay, this is what we know from that here. And the names, indications, aspects of roadway and cab signals shall be defined in the carrier's operating rulebook and special instructions. This is where the regulatory framework here in the Code of Regulations points to the operating rulebook of the carrier and the specialist instructions. And this is where the carriers can more or less fill all the frame that is given in this section here. And then we have already seen that there are organizations that more or less try to unify those rules so that not every little railroad has totally and completely different aspects, and so engineers and crews can only operate on this railroad, and as soon as they go to a different track, then they totally do not understand the signals or are confused because they have a different indication that they are used to. That's why we have some organizations where railroad carriers try to unify their stuff and their regulations. This was the GCOR, the General Code of Operating Rule Organization, for example, where we have seen that Burlington North and Santa Fe, BNSF and Union Pacific and Caltrain are members of this organization, and they still have their own signaling rules. They have the General Code of Operating Rules, but in this code there are no signal aspects, but this is in the special instructions and rule books of the carriers, and obviously there are more, but we have already have seen the BNSF signaling stuff in the Cajon Pass. We have seen the Caltrain rules in the Baby Bullet Stream. If you haven't seen them, just look into them. You should find that quite easily. Union Pacific, like in Sherman Hill, we have not done this before so far. Maybe we will do this in a stream that is to come. It has a bit of a problem with the cab signals in Sherman Hill, so I'm just waiting for a fix actually to maybe go there and stream from Sherman Hill. Then there is the NORAC organization that we have seen in the Boston Sprinter stream, where you have actually signal aspects defined in the operating rules, in the common operating rules, and they are unified for all the members, like Amtrak, for example, what we have in the Boston territory. And the price that comes with the unification is that they have a lot of different aspects for every signal name, because they collect more or less all the existing signals of their member carriers together. Yeah, very close to NORAC, but not NORAC is what we have today, the MTA Metro-North Railroad rules. That railroad carrier that operates the Harlem Line that we are driving for today. They used to be, if I read that correctly, among those railroad carriers that were talking about founding the NORAC organization, but are not actually at the time NORAC members, so they can have their own rules. So the rules, the signaling rules that we are looking at, are not NORAC, they are not GCOR, they are standalone on the same level like those two. And obviously there are more to come, like the Long Island Railroad. As soon as we get to them, they will be on the same level here, but they are very, very akin to NORAC rules, or at least there are some NORAC signals that are quite close to the one that are used in Long Island Railroad. The signals that we have here on Metro North, you will see it in a second. They are quite rudimentary for the roadway signals anyway, but the in-cab signaling system looks just like the in-cab signaling system that they use in the trains on Long Island Railroad. What is not surprising, because they are more or less the same trains. So what is the signaling system in Metro North actually? MTA Metro-North, that's the name of the railway carrier and the name of the signaling system. Of course, on our main line we have those flashing green signals that we have already seen when we have been running our train so far. And we have to distinguish between two sections of the track. One is the main line, most part of the track, everything that is out of Grand Central Terminal. So we have mainline signals here, and then in the terminal, actually at the Grand, everything that is underground more or less at the Grand Central Terminal, they have special signals there, and they usually have those plaque with the number on top of them, so you can actually distinguish them from the road signals. Not always, because the mainline signals have plaques of that kind too. But I put the plaques here because in the rules they are indicated with those plaques, so that you can distinguish the main line and the terminal signal from each other. So in the terminal you have a red over a green. That means the proceed aspect in the terminal. On the main line you have the flashing green. It is called a proceed cap here on the main line, or a terminal proceed, and it means two different things. On the main line it actually points you to your aspect display unit in your cab of your train. You just have to look what letter is lit up to see what speed you are allowed to go by the signals. In the terminal it is different. This is the proceed aspect that you get, and in the terminal you must not go faster than 10. So if you see that, you are always restricted to the 10 miles per hour, but at least you can pass the signal. Since this signal, the flashing green, points you to the ADU, all the other signals are on the ADU, and you have already seen that the N in the circle means normal cap. You are allowed to go with maximum authorized speed. That is track speed. So you just have to see what does the track allow here, and there comes in the display that was on the top middle on our ADU, that actually is so nice to indicate the current maximum authorized speed at the moment. That will be controlled by ACSES. Again, we look into ACSES on another stream. Then the letters just follow like this. Next to normal cap we have limited cap, what is 45, just like in NORAC. We have a medium cap, what is 30, just like in NORAC. And then on the other end of the line we have the restricted cap, and for a restricted we have a special signal in the terminal that has a steady yellow on the bottommost. So we have red over black over yellow. This is because those lamps don't change their color, they just light different lamps. So if a signal goes from proceed to restricted, it just lights the lamp on the bottom So this is restricted cap here, or terminal restricting. Means max 15 or max 10. You know that with restricted speed you have to drive on site. You have to be ready to stop your train in front of an obstacle on the track that you can actually oversee. And on the main line with this restricted cap signal governing, you are allowed to go maximum 15 if you can see further than a distance that would allow you to go faster and still stop in front of any obstacle. No, 15 is the maximum, and in the terminus it is 10. Like always, in the terminal it is always 10. No matter if it is a proceed or if it is a restricting. On a restricting, it adds obviously the aspect that you can only go on site, and that you might go in a block that is already occupied by a second train. The stop, we have obviously two. On the main line it looks like this. It is red over black over red. We have seen this on the tracks that are not our tracks when we were driving along, and in the terminus it is just the topmost red that is lit. So the green lamp and the yellow lamp are just black, and this means obviously that you cannot pass this signal. You can get a cap signal too, an S in this circle, but you should not be able to see that in the game because you spat out before you see that. So if you run a red signal, then your ADU in the cap will switch to the S and means stop, 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 you shouldn't be here at all, and stop now at least. So in the game I don't think that you will ever see that because you are kicked out of the game because of the spat. It is called a stop signal or a positive stop, and obviously you are not allowed to go on. So why did I leave some gaps here? Because there are in the sources two signals that are not used in the game. I don't know if they are still used on the actual track in real life. Before we get to that, we already talked about this. What is it on the approach department? We have one signal that has an approach aspect. This is in the terminal. We have a flashing yellow on the bottom, indicating that the next signal will be a stop signal. But that is all what we have in the approach department. Only in the terminal. And here you can see if it is steady, it is a restricting. If it is flashing, it is an approach. All the signals in the terminal never let you go more than 10, but they distinguish between you can go on, proceed, you have to expect the next signal being red, you have to go on side, and you have to stop. Those are the four signals that you have in the terminus, in the terminal, and they are just enough. In the terminal, your ADU, by the way, will always show the R for the restricting. Unless you run a red signal, then it will go to stop, obviously, but this should not happen and won't happen in the game. So, the gaps. There is on your ADU a balloon with a 60. That should obviously be a cap 60 or 60 cap and allow you to go 60. But it is not used in the game. I don't know if it is used on Metro-North at all. I haven't found it in the sources there, but it is in the ADU. Maybe they built it because they need it on the Long Island Railroad or somewhere else. But you won't see this lit up in the game. And then in the sources you find a signal like this. It's a funny thing. It's more or less a mixture between the stop signal on the main line and the flashing green proceed signal. You have it flashing alternately, so it will flash between green in the middle and the reds on top and bottom. And it is a signal that is called an absolute block signal. And absolute block means that, as opposed to permissive block, it is that for some reason, because maybe something malfunctioned or something stopped operating, you go back to absolute block rules. That means only one train can occupy one block at the same time. not permissive block, absolute block, and those signals tell you about that. I don't think that you can ever find them in the game, and I don't know if they are still used in real life, but they are in the sources as far as I could find them. And that means actually that you are allowed to go slow in interlockings, maximum 59 out of interlockings, and always be prepared to stop at the next signal. So this will most probably be a mixture between those signals and then stop and then those signals again. But in the game on the main line you will always see either the flashing green or the red if you have to stop. This is all in signals on the trackside that you will encounter in the game, and the rest will happen on your ADU here. One thing more for the roadside signals: if that is your line, you have some actually signage that warn you about incoming speed reductions. Not only will the ACSES system warn you about speed reductions that are incoming, we will talk about ACSES in a different stream, I think, and the warning that you get from ACSES is quite short, so you can't go with 65 and approach a reduction to 40 and then rely on being fast enough and slowing down. You're trying starting at the point when ACSES tells you to slow down. You have actually at some points at least advanced warning signs that tell you about an incoming speed reduction. You will see the target speed on a yellow sign and there is a black bar underneath that. So this is the advanced warning that you are running up to a 40 reduction, but to be fair, they are not really easy to spot in the game. And then when there is the definite speed reduction, you don't see a number anymore, you just see SR on the yellow sign telling you speed reduction, obviously. I think that is what SR means here, and this is the execute order to the advanced order, so you have to remember actually what the advanced sign told you that will be incoming, and here is the marker for it starts here. Actually you don't have to remember it because your ADU would tell you. It will switch to the new speed reduction at this point, but those signs are not always there. Not every speed reduction is actually signed with those, but a lot of them are, even in the game. Yeah, that was my presentation for today, and we can go back to our trains. So we are loading our passengers here at, what was it, Scarsdale, I think, right? What's the name? Hartsdale and Scarsdale. I think those two lights here should tell you about the brake status of the train, but they don't. They do it on the M7 book. Camera got kicked away by the signal. Crestwood is the next stop. So, next look at our ADU. Track speed just increased from 60 to 65. We have a normal cap. That means we can actually go to the 65 as soon as the train has passed the speed changing point. So we can accelerate in the snow. Crestwood in... Can you hear the sound? This is actually quite a nice sound when you pass a train. You hear this whoa, 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 whoa. I don't think I ever heard that in a different DLC. Yeah, totally. That is great, yeah. The problem is that you can only hear it if you are in a different tunnel in the Grand Central Terminal, where you would probably not hear it in real life. But it is great that they implemented that. So we will get a speed reduction here. That always needs to be acknowledged with the acknowledge button. Crestwood. Night lighting isn't bad at all here. Only thing is that the platform itself does not cast a shadow for whatever reason, so it is totally lit below. But now here you can see how reluctantly this train is slowing down on the snowy tracks. I stopped short a bit. Yeah, that's what I mean. Usually you should think that below the platform it is dark, because the platform itself casts a shadow. And those lamps don't cast a light. But apart from that, the lighting is getting better from DLC to DLC, I think. Yes, and the snow in Train Sim World 3 is one of the things that got improved so much. Tuckahoe. So you can see the red signs, the red aspects on the signals, and the flashing green that we talked about. And the N aspect on the ADU, 64 track speed. And this is obviously the speed that we are going at the moment, visualized with this bar. Actually, Tuckahoe is not far away. We won't be able to accelerate to track speed at all. Yes. On the next station, I think I will try to demonstrate how the train starts to slide if you apply brakes too hard. People are not wearing their winter stuff. It's a tough breed here. Don't ruin the run. No, I won't. I will try to do that in an orderly fashion. At least I will try to. Bronxville, again a very short trip until the next stop. What is nice in this DLC is that you have a big variety of different services. Some of those local services where you stop a lot, and then you have express services where you just stop a couple of times and more or less run the line. You even have empty coach moves, deadhead services. You just have to take the train from one station to the other so that it can be used there again. So I will try to bring down the speed properly to like 20, and now did you hear? Quiek, quiek! And now it is sliding. Okay, I ruined the run a bit because we stopped way too early and I only got so and so much points, but this is obviously not the problem. I will get the train properly to the platform so that people can get into it. But did you at least hear the screeching, and then it was silent? So, people know you can board. Look at the spray of the other train. And the sign says, "Do not spray." Approaching Fleetwood. There's another little bridge here, as far as I know, where you have a reduction to 55 on the express lines that are in the middle of the four lines here. I think we don't have to slow down to 55. Here is this bridge, and if you're running through the bridge you have to slow down. Not so if you are just passing on the outside. So this is one of those rare spots. where express trains need to go slower than the local trains. Can you see the snow here underneath the platform? That is new in the newer DLCs and Train Sim World 3 then. So far it only turned the floor white, and now actually the snow amasses here underneath the platform. Did I unlock the wrong side? No, I didn't unlock anything. No, I did unlock the wrong side. No, they are closed, but the red light is on both sides, obviously. So now I have to focus on my driving a bit. After the demonstration of a emergency brake application and the sliding, I fell behind the timetable. Mount Vernon West is the next stop. Yeah, we're not going to 60 all the way. This green light with the BA, if you see that lighting up here, it is short for brake assurance, and that is important for your ACSES system and for the ATC system. That makes sure that you comply with the cab signals. Now our cab signal changed to limited. 45. What doesn't really bug us, because we have to stop here anyway. I slowed down too much. So we will fall back behind schedule a bit more. Sometimes it takes a bit for the door unlock to register, especially if you use it too early, like I did. So now we have a track speed limit of 60, but we have a cab signal of limited cab telling us that we cannot go faster than 45. So obviously the lower one takes precedence, and we have to comply with the 45 limit. And why the signaling system is slowing us down to 45, we will learn quite soon, because after Wakefield we will go through a diverging line, or a line that goes a bit around. And there is a limit of 35. Yeah, again. That was already a mistake. This door should be at the platform. So it's always dangerous if you want to get back to the timetable in snowy conditions. You might miss your platform. Woodlawn is next stop. So here you can see, this is why we got slowed down to 45, because we are going through this diverging lane here into Woodlawn, or one of the tracks actually goes a bit around. So, well, like we have seen in a couple of instances, the signaling speed limit actually prepares for... Oh. Now I am really late on the brakes. Now I am really late on the brakes. Yeah. What I try to explain... Why is the station so dark, by the way? No wonder you miss it. Well, since that platform is so short that I cannot get my whole train at the platform anyway, it is not so bad that I missed it. But anyway, should not have happened. Williams Bridge. At least a bit more track between here and then. We are still in the 45 until we are back on the, in quotation marks, main track. And also the in-cab signaling is keeping us below the 45. Still have to wait until the end of the train has passed the switch. Like now, I guess. No, not yet. I think now it has passed, yes. And now we can speed up. This is a part actually we can go 75. But we have to stop at Williams Bridge, so be prepared for that. We won't go to 75. 60 is enough, because we have to start slowing down from 60 at about 3,000 feet, so that it won't get too hard with the brakes. Well, now I am too slow. Far away from the station. And now the train does not really want to slow down. Well, maybe it's just me being clumsy. Well, at least the 500 point stop at this point. Or this train is really quite hard to slow down in snowy conditions. But most probably I should just practice more. And again, you can see it, the platform is not long enough for all the train to be at the platform. Or is a bit weird. Don't know if this happens in real life. I guess if it happens in real life, then you would use your door operation system that ensures that only the doors are opened that actually have a platform in front of them. Next stop will be Botanical Gardens. Still in the 75 area, but soon as you go around this corner here, then you will be slowed down to 60 at the next bend. Irrelevant for us because we have to stop at Botanical Gardens. Nevertheless, we have to acknowledge the reduction. I always tend to overbrake a bit in the approach, and then the train does not want to slow down from like 30 to a standstill. Maybe it's just me, or this train really has a bit of a weird braking pattern here. Well, almost back on the timetable. Botanical Gardens here. Look at those signals, they actually have a texture on the back. Flashing green. Well, maybe I wouldn't be behind schedule. Too dark to see the texture. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't the best of choices to drive a night service here. But I actually like the idea of it getting dark and snowy. Because that is what you think of when you think of riding trains in New York State, right? At least that's what I think of. So let's see if I can do that better with the over braking here. This is Fordham. Well, this train is really reluctant to slow down in snowy conditions. It's a bit of an underground station here. So you're actually going underneath this, whatever it is. I don't know what happens on the top of it. Roads, I guess. And with less exploring and more sticking to the boarding times, I would not be behind schedule so much, I guess. So, next station, Harlem 105th Street. So that is quite a way to go. Now we are entering a part of the track where we are running in one of those ditches that are so typical for American railroads on the East Coast, especially. Where you do not have any level crossings because the train is running in the ditch and the streets are going across bridges. Like we have this in Boston, in the Boston DLC, and like here. And there is a station here in this area, but we are not stopping there. I think here we are. What is this? Melrose? Something like that. There is a center beam freight car, and after that we have to prepare for slowing down to 60. ACSES will tell us we have a very short time to comply, so route knowledge is everything, and you can already prepare for slowing down in advance. Then you only have to acknowledge. I think it must be here anytime, and here it is. By the way, you can see on this green and orange light whether your brakes are on or not the moment they are released. As soon as I turn them to on, the orange lamp will light up. Now we're going through this underground station without stopping. Don't know its name at the moment. Can use the high beams for a short while, as long as we're here underground. I'm not sure if we are required to use the high beams. And now you might see here this 40 announcement sign, and then Now we get a cab signal telling us to slow down to 45, what we complied with. And soon enough we will run into a 40 reduction track speed wise. And you can see the sign here, very low, SR, and from here on, chick, it switched to 40. Here in this area it is always a bit complicated because the switches have different speed limits. Some are 35, some are 40, some are 30. And it's not always easy to see that in advance if you don't want to look at your pause screen indication. I think this to the left here is the only switch that has a 30 limit. We are not going to the left here, we are going straight to Harlem Bridge. That means we are only slowed down to 35. And as long as we are not getting any more restricting cab signals, we can stay on the 35 here. You can see in front of us Harlem Bridge. And this is really a great part of the track. That looks extremely pretty. Oh. I hope another train is coming with us. Isn't that a view? That beep was just... The other one is a M7, by the way. Okay. Now the cameras won't catch this anymore. Stopping at this station, Harlem 125th Street, is a bit special because you don't necessarily need to stop at the indication that is given here. It would make you stop in the middle of the platform somewhere with the end of your train sticking out. You can, if there is enough room, move to the front and stop at the end of the platform, and you will still be getting 500 points. I think this is some precaution in case that there is a second train already waiting at the station here, so that you can still reach your stop marker. So this is the train that came with us across Harlem Bridge. You can see the brake lights here that are not working on our train. Ours are dark. And now we're going into the Grand Central Terminal. You can see those big buildings at the front, or at the end of our line of sight. And there is the entrance to the underground system that is taking us to the station. So I think the train has passed the speed changing point. We can accelerate. To the 60 until we get to the tunnel entrance, and we have to slow down to the 45 again. Since we are going through the tunnel to the right and there is a limit of 45. Oh, I'm speeding now. Did not watch my speed clock. I don't know about you, AJ, but I like this view here. With the big buildings through the projects in Harlem. In the snow. It just looks good. Slowing down in preparation for the 45. Here is the 45, we're going to the right. To our private little tunnel. 45 will end soon. Switch to 60. But soon enough it will go back down to 45, so there is actually no point in accelerating to 60 here, since we still would have to wait for the train end to pass the speed changing point. So it's again 45. And now it's 60, so as soon as the train is across the speed changing point, we can accelerate again to 60. So that was just an estimate that the train was through the speed changing point. Let's see if we get docked. Now it was okay. And now, as you can see, we are getting funneled down by the cab signaling system. If you're too fast, then you will hear this sound here. You will have to brake with at least 70%. Then it will stop, because then you will get the brake assurance. And then you have to slow down to 2 clicks below the limit for the system to stop beeping. In this case you don't need to acknowledge it, because you're already in suppression braking, brake assurance. But you have to keep your brake lever into %70% or 60% to keep that up. Now we will get a restricted, I guess. So we slow down to below 15. And the flashing green that you can see in the distance will be the last mainline signal before the signaling for the Grand Central Terminal starts. You will see that access control ends there. We will get the dashes on the indicator for the track limit. And then we are down to 10. When we are driving out of access, we will have to acknowledge that. So we will have to acknowledge the dashes. And here sometimes it can happen that you have to acknowledge 3 things at the same time. The restricted that you're getting, the end of access, and before that sometimes a reduction to 10 in line speed. Sometimes you don't go straight into the dashes, but sometimes you get the 10 as a speed limit before that, and then you have to acknowledge 3 things: the restricted aspect, the drop to 10 in line speed, and then the end of access. So we did not get a 10 here, well, we just went out straight of axis to the dashes, and now we are limited to 10 miles maximum. You can see the first terminal aspect here. What is a red over green? That means terminal proceed. You can go on here. Actually, we can turn off the wiper, I guess. There will be no more snow here. So, this driving underground with very slow speeds, I think it looks great. They did a great job in doing the lighting here underground. But sometimes, I don't know, it feels a bit tedious to do this slow driving underground. What do you think, AJ? I think it is just good, the combination of driving line speed and or main line and then here in the underground. But more driving underground will be a bit hard. So, a lot of reds in front of us. There is a flashing yellow under the red. That means it's an approach signal. But I guess it's not for us. It's really a maze here with the tracks. At least we're not going into the loop. We're going in the middle. I guess this flashing yellow is for us. Looks like it. Well, it does a weird pattern, doesn't it? No, it's better. Something was getting in front of it, I guess. And now we're getting to our platform. Not quite. This is the platform on the other side, or is it ours? Depends on where we're going across this ridge. No, it is ours. No, it is not ours because it is only for the track on the right of us. Here our platform begins. So, after all, we almost made it in time. 1 minute late maybe. Still have 600 feet to go. But for the last stop, this is not so important point-wise because you only get like 62 points or something. I don't know. Sometimes it is more. And here the track ends. And so does the service. Just make sure not to run into the buffer block. So that's where we are. Grand Central Terminal. And the service is done. If we look at the stopping patterns, 335, that was the one that was totally 188. I can work on that, I guess. But some of them were good before the snow started. And then after that, I found a way. So more practice actually would do something here. But I still find the brake pattern is... well... you have to get used to it. Then probably you can work with it. Well, I think that's the end of the stream for today. Thank you very much for moderating it, AJ. If you are still awake. And yes, you are. Good, great. Then see you on Sunday evening for the next stream. And take care.